Good morning, students. Starting from your unit 1 of your syllabus, we will first start Introduction to Python language. This is the course content of your part 1. In the introduction of Python, we'll say Python is interpreted language, object-oriented language, high-level programming with dynamic semantics and complex code. Let's find out what is the meaning of interpreted. As we're having two things, one is called interpreter, other is called compiler. If we look at our previous programming languages that we have studied over C or C++, that was compiler based languages. We need one compiler to convert our code and then we use it. Then we get the output. Firstly, we will give the input, then compiler will compile it, and then we give the output. What happened in the case of compiler and interpreter? The basic definition that we have known about it, the compiler runs the code at once and find out the error. It runs the whole code at once, and the interpreter check your code line by line. This is the basic definition that you know. Now it's the time to find out practically what is the difference. You know about the compiler. When you run your C++ program, you will get the list of error with the error name that this is the error line and whatsoever the error is there. But in the case of Python, suppose this is our program that I have opened. Introduction is first line code, Python is second line code, interpreted is third line code, object-oriented is fourth line, then fifth line, then sixth line. I consider my code as sixth line. Suppose there is an error in third line. And in the case of interpreted, I have to write interpret. Okay, this is one error. I am giving you a layman example here. In this case, your program will not run until and unless you will remove your error from the third line. Because interpreter will check your code line by line. Firstly, it will check introduction, then it will check Python is, then it will check interpreted. If instead of interpreted, interpret is written there, then it will tell you firstly remove this error, sort out this error, then your next line will be get checked. Then debugging will be like line by line. If your whole code is fine, after checking line by line, then only your code will run. Then only you will get the output. This is interpreted. Python is interpreted means your code will be checked line by line. Object-oriented, you know difference between object-oriented and procedural. Firstly, for Python is goes by both the ways, by procedural, structural, or object-oriented. Okay. In Python, we are having the ability of using classes and object. We are having inheritance here. So Python is object-oriented language. This is high-level program with dynamic semantics. High-level programming means that the user can understand. We are having two types of languages. One is low-level language, other is high-level language. Low-level language is our assembly language that is not understandable to us. Machine is other is binary language that is in the form of 0 and 1. Again, it is not understandable to us. It is understandable to computer only. With dynamic semantics means as you are going to write your code in C++, suppose you are going to declare one variable that is integer variable. What keyword you have to write down? Int a. That means a is a type of variable having the integer type. But in the case of Python, there is no need to define the data type before the name of the variable. By default, at the time when your code will run, Python will accept your variable of that type. If you have written a equal to 10, that means Python is accepting it as an integer. If you are writing a equal to 10.5, Python will by default taking it as a float.
volume check कर लो.
As I am saying that it is with the dynamic semantics. Let's play with one example. If I written here int, this is in the case of C++ or C. That means A is a type of variable and this is the data type. Means whatsoever the value I will take here, if I will take here 15, this is integer, that's fine. If I will take the value A equal to 15.5. In the case of C++, I have defined A as an integer. So 0.5 will not be get considered here. A will be the value of A will be 15. This is the case in C++. But in the case of Python, if I consider my Python code, I don't have to declare the data type before any variable. If I write here A equal to 15, that means the value of A is 15, and that if I check the type of A, you will get class int. That is of integer type. You want to check which type of variable you are using here. The way to check the type of that variable is use the word type and name of the variable. You will get, this is your result, where you will get after pressing enter, you will get class integer. If I will write 15.5, then class will be class float. If I will write here any string, suppose I am writing here hello, I will get the class string. It means I'm not declaring here integer, float, character here. This is called dynamic semantic is here. Whatsoever is my requirement, I will use that variable directly by declaring it, not by defining the data type. There is no need to define the data type. Data type will be get picked by Python itself. Then it's called compressed code. Compressed code means, suppose we are going to write then it's called the compressed code. Suppose we are going to find the sum of two numbers in C++. What we have to write here, I will write a full program here. We will write the header file, IO stream. Then we will write here conio. This is our C++ program. Then we will write void main section. Then clear screen. Suppose I am going to write one constant value program to add two number A equal to 10 and B equal to 20. Then int C equal to A plus B. Then see out the value of C. Then get CH. This is my whole code. Let's count the lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is 10-line code. Okay. But in the case of Python, if I am going to add two number, what I will do here is, if there is constant value, then I can simply write 10 plus 20. This is, and then the result will be, after pressing enter, the result will be 30. There is no need to write the variables. If I am going to use variables, then I may write A equal to 10, B equal to 20, A plus B. Then answer will be 30. You can find out this is 2-line code, this is 4-line code. It will depend upon you which type of code that you are going to use. The code is very much compressed. There is no need to write the header file. There is no any word main section. There is no any clear screen. There is no any get ch. And the most important thing is, in the Python, we don't use any type of parentheses. We only use indentation. That we will see when we study Python in detail. Indentation means space. We have to just take in consideration about the indentation. Indentation means space. We don't have to follow, or we don't have to care about the parentheses in the case of Python. Then is how interpreter or compiler is used in Python. Firstly, I said Python is interpreted. But to confuse students, it is generally asked Python is compiled or interpreted. Whether Python is a compiler based or interpreter based. Actually, there is a compiler in Python. Okay, learn it very carefully. What I'm going to say here is there is one compiler in Python and it works very instantly, very quickly, that you won't get any time to find out how compiler works. Suppose there is an editor. Editor means you have written your code. Okay. Then this will become your source file. Your source file will be with the extension of .py. As in C, your extension is file extension is .c. In C++, your file extension is .cpp. In Python, you are having file extension is .py. Okay, remember it. File extension is .py. So there is one source file with the file extension py. Okay. Then I said Python interpreter is there. Then this is your running program. This is simple way you are having your input. Then it will be get interpreted and you will get your output. In the interpreter, we're having one virtual machine. Firstly, your source code will be get compiled by internal compiler. It will be get converted into bytecode and then it goes to the virtual machine that is called PVM. In Java, we are having JVM. In Python, we are having PVM. That is Java. In JVM means Java virtual machine and PVM means Python virtual machine. And then it goes to the running program. If there are some library modules, it will be get picked by the virtual machines. If I am saying that there are some inbuilt libraries, libraries means as we are having header files in case of C++. We know the function of cin and cout is in the IO stream. Okay. Similarly, if I am using some direct function here and I am installing or using any package here, then all the function is in the library modules. Virtual machine will find out from the library module and then it will be get converted into your running program. Here you can find out when it will be get converted into bytecode, which thing will convert your source file into your bytecode. That is a internal compiler is there. Okay, but full-fledged there is a working of interpreter. So it will be half correct if I say Python is completely interpreter based. It is not completely interpreter based. A compiler is used when it will be get used when the source code will be get converted into bytecode. Then the compiler will be get used. To understand it more, how interpreter works in detail. Suppose there is a file name that is called abc.py. Okay, this is your file. This is the, as I am saying, there is a compiler. What is the working of compiler here is there is a one subject that is called system programming. In the system programming, the compiler is designed. Okay. As I have told you previously that you can design your own compiler, you can design your own interpreter. There is also a man who has designed Python as an interpreter. Okay? But there is a basic steps here is, suppose there is a file name abc.py. Okay. Then is In the internally, there are three steps. One is called lexing, then is parsing, then is compiling. Lexing means, I will not tell you in detail, but for you must know that what is lexing, what is parsing, what is compiling. Lexing means you must have heard about tokens. There are tokens in C++ that you have heard about. Your program, your source code has been converted into tokens here. Okay, this is the first step. Then there is a parsing. Parsing means there is a checking of syntax and semantics. So you are using your do while. It is clear to us that if you are using do, we must have while along with it. Okay. Or if we are using something like for, then it must have three parts. These are all the basic syntax that has been defined in the compiler. This is called parsing. It will check whether the program is being organized according to the syntax and semantics that has been designed. Then there is a compiling. This is compiler process. Generally, it can merge in simple word. One is called compiler. But internally, it is lexing, parsing, and compiling is there. Okay. Then it will be get converted into your byte code. Okay. When there is a byte code, okay, then a file will be get created that is called PYC. PY stands for your Python file extension, and .pyc stands for compiled Python file. Okay, this is your Python extension. py.pyc is your compiled Python file. Okay, that's why it will be get converted to .pyc. Then it is the whole process. Bytecode will get the go to the virtual machine. If there is any library module is there, it will be get checked there, and then there is a running code. Okay, this is your whole process of compiling. I'm teaching you in detail about it because you must know what is PVM, how the bytecode will be get converted, what is .pyc, then is again to understand x.py your source file, compiler using Python compiler, it will be get compiled file name will be x.pyc, that is your bytecode. It goes to the virtual machine. Virtual machine will also get connected to your library modules. This then it will be converted into your machine code. Then you will get your output. Looking at the brief history of the Python, Python start in late 80s, then implementation start in 1989. The first version of Python is 0.9 that was released in 1991. In 1994, 1.0 version has been released. In October 2000, 2.x version has been released. 2008, 3.x version has been released. In the June 2018, 3.7 version has been released. And if we currently consider it, 3.10 version has been released of the Python. The last version has been released on 14th Jan of this year. There is some history and versions. Python laid its foundation in the late 1980s. The implementation of Python was started in December 1989 by Gordon Rossum at CWI in Netherlands. In Feb 1991, Gordon Rossum published the code In 1994, Python 1.01 was released with the features like lambda, map, filter, and reduce. These are the functions that we will study. Python 2.0 added new features such as list comprehension, garbage collection system, and so on. On December 2008, Python 3.0, that is PY3K, was released. It was designed to rectify the fundamental flaw of the language. ABC programming language is said to be predecessor of Python language. Actually, the author, the founder of this Python, that is Gordon Rossum, was the developer of ABC programming language. Then suddenly an idea came into his mind that he must do something like this where there is no restrictions. If we look at our C or C++ programming languages, there are so many restrictions that we have to cram over header files. We have to take consideration about our parentheses. We have to write down the main section, return value, and all the things. The developer want to write this type of language which is free of from from many restrictions. So he developed Python. The following programming languages influence Python is ABC language and Modula 3. These are the old languages, ABC 3 language and Modula 3. How was Python named? Why it is called Python? When Gordon von Rossum began implementing Python, he was also reading the published scripts from Monty Python's Flying Circus. Actually, there was one comedy series in the BBC in the 1970s, which was named as Monty Python's Flying Circus. The founder was a great fan of that comedy show. So he think that he named a language as a Python because he wanted to give a very short, unique, and slightly mysterious name to his programming language. So he decided to call the language as Python. Let's consider the features of Python. Python is easy to learn and use. It is very expressive language. It is interpreted language. It is cross-platform language. Cross-platform language, here you can understand it is easy to how it is easy to learn and use because there are no any syntax and semantics. There is so much restriction is not there. We can, this is an expressive language because this is like a way we can write our code very easily. Interpreted, that you have understood it, that what is interpreted mean. Cross-platform language means suppose you have written your code in your Linux machine and you are running your code on some other Windows. You can easily do it. That is cross-platform languages there. This is free and open source. You can easily download it. This is free of cost. There is no any cost or trial version of Python. This is object oriented. This is extensible. Extensible means the Python can be connected to the other languages. We will study here the various flavors of Python. Then we will come to understand the word of extensible means. Then is last standard library. As I have already told you that it is very difficult to cram all the libraries because there are so many libraries or packages in Python. Then is GUI programming support is there. This is as we can design our plotting and design our game development. So GUI features are supported by Python. This is integrated. This is embeddable. That means it can be integrated with the other languages. Dynamic memory allocation is there. As I have told you that this is extensible. Extensible means it can be extended into various forms. Extended into various form means it can be extended with other languages. These are the languages by which we can extend our Python. That is, these are called the flavors of Python. Firstly, C Python, that is, we can use Python along with our C program. Then is J Python, that is Java Python. Iron Python, that is .NET framework with Python. PyPy Python, that is Python with Python. Ruby Python is there. Stackless Python is there. Python XY is there. Anaconda Python is there. These are all the flavors of Python, that is merging of Python with the other languages. Now comparing the Python 2.x with 3.x. As we have studied that there are earlier version of Python was 2 point something, and currently we are studying 3.x. These are the ways by which Python differ from 2.x differ from your 3.x. Let's consider it one by one. In the division operator, I haven't mentioned here the result. Okay. You don't need to install your 2.x version. You just need 3.x version. When you're going to earlier, when you're going to find out the division, if I say 7 divided by 2, in the case of 2.x Python and in the case of 3.x. In the case of 2.x Python, you will only get integer value. That was answer was 3. In the case of 3.x version, the answer was 3.5. If we want to use the float value here, we have to mention here 7.0 divided by 2.0, then we will only get float value. This is the difference between division operator in 2.x version and 3.x version. Here we can directly get our float value, but here if we want float value, we have to mention here 0.0 along with our value, unit value. Then is print function. The print is a keyword in 2.x, but it is a function in 3.x. If we firstly, I will tell you what is print here. As in the case of C++, we are having cout. In the case of C, we are having printf. In the case of Python, we are having print. If you have to use hello world, that is our basic thing, I will use here hello or welcome, whatsoever you like. What will be your result? Your result will be hello in the case of C, the C++. In the case of printf, you will write, I'm ignoring here whatsoever will be here before it, you will simply get hello. In the printf case, in the case of Python, you will get print function to print your value. Either you may write in single quotes or you may write in double quotes. Whatsoever you want to print, you can write in single quotes or in double quotes, that is to print string on your screen. You can use it. Okay. Either use single quotes or double quotes. Okay. There is no any difference. You will get the same result. In this case, you will get hello. In this case, you will get hello. Now, considering the difference, print was a keyword in previous Python, in Python 2, but it was like a function in Python 3.0.